Welcome everyone to this walkthrough session. Thank you for joining. Today, Denise and Miles will be showing you some of the functions on the manual data entry systems in Ingenuity 7. Okay, I think Denise, you're going to kick off, so over to you.
Okay, so in this session, we're going to cover the different ways in which we can have manual entry in Ingenuity 7. I'm going to cover the first one, which is the write data widget. So basically, this is an example based on one of the clients that they wanted to build a chemical ordering dashboard to sort of calculate how much they would need to order of each chemical based on either their current dosing rate or a manual rate set by them. So basically, it would be following this sort of equation in which you would have the hourly rate, which could be the dosing one or a manual rate. You multiply by 24 hours per day, and then you would multiply that times the days until the next delivery, which is also a manual entry data or input, and the additional days minus 70% of the total inventory that they currently have on that particular chemical. So to do this, we made this dashboard. So here we have the information on the chemicals, the dosing rate, and the manual rate. Here we have other input data, which would be the days till the next delivery and additional days that we would like to cover as well. And then this would be our result, basically how many liters of each chemical to order. To do this, we go to edit mode. And here we're going to have the manual rates. Here are the dosing rates, which is just some tags based on your dosing. And to add a manual rate tag, we go to the widget menu on the left. We select a number. We put it in our dashboard. Here under value, we define a name. Here, if we go to the magnifying glass, we can see here on search all the different tags and all the different historians that we have as well. We are going to write this manual entry to the eigen manual input historian. So then that is going to be how our tag is going to start. So its name is going to be eigen underscore manual underscore input. Then we're going to have this slash, and then we are going to put the name of the tag, which in this case, it's going to be the demulsifier. You can call them the name that you wish to name them. We recommend to use the same format if you're going to do this for different chemicals or for different tanks, etc., just to keep the same type of order. So we're going to call it manual rate and then underscore and then the name of the chemical, which in this case will be the emulsifier. So there we go, and the units are going to be liters per hour. And we're going to save. We're going to see that here we get a little error. That is completely fine because this is a new tag that it doesn't recognize because it doesn't exist just yet. So we are going to go here to the cogwheel on the top right. We're going to click on it, and then we're going to toggle enable write option, and then we can click again on our dashboard. And what we're going to do next is go to the widget menu on the left, and we're going to look for the write data widget. We're just going to drag and drop it. And this is like a little button. Let me get a bit bigger. I want to place it here. We go to configuration on the right. And here we have the button text. So this we can set to whatever we want. We're going to put calculate. This would be the button to click to add the manual entry data, and then these calculations will be based on those manual entry data. And we can also change different things about this button, for example, the color or the size, the alignment, etc. We're going to leave it as is for now. And the very important thing to modify here is the scope. So we are going to click on this drop down menu, and we have different options. We have a group and we have page as well. In group, we see these little rectangles. These are groups of widgets in this case. So this is basically going to define if we want to look at all the tags with enable write in this group or in the whole page. In this case, we're going to put the whole page because these manual rates are outside this group, but that is a different option. So you can modify it as it fits you best. So we have that set, and we're just going to save. Now, if we click on calculate, here we can see all the different tags that I have in this page because that's how I configured it that have enable write toggled on. So we have the additional days, we have the next delivery date, the manual rate emulsifier, manual rate wax inhibitor, manual rate flocculant. Here is the current values. Here we have the units, if it had any units. And here we have the current values and when those were set. Here we can have a calendar, because sometimes it happens that you want to create this tag and you want to register that, okay, today maybe the value was 5, but 3 days ago or so it was a different value. So what we're going to do now is let's just change the values. This we're going to put maybe to 10 and then 20. Manual rate of that emulsifier, let's put a higher number, maybe like 34. This one we can leave maybe this, like this. Yeah, so here we have the menu and we can click on it to select the date that we are going to go for. So yeah, we're just going to write. And we get the message that all the points were written. We can close this. And here we can see the new value that we have set. So if we click on it, here we're just going to see a very small point because period is in 1 week. So let's put 1 hour. And here we have our new tag. Since it didn't exist before, then it didn't have a value. But now we can see the value that it has. So from now on, it will start recording these values as we go. For example, if we click on these other values that I created previously, then we can see how it is through time. It's also important to notice this is a line graph. So it's interpolated and it's sort of joining the dots or the different values that we have put. If we want to see just the individual points, we go here under chart type, we select points and we select raw from the data type. And then we can see just the points where we wrote the values to this tag instead. So then after we click on the calculate and change the values according to that, then this page will give us an estimate of how many liters of each chemical to order according to this data that we have given it. So this was just a quick tool to estimate how much to order, and the manual entry in this case is very useful because sometimes even though you're dosing this amount, you know that maybe you will change that dosage tomorrow and onwards. So then you want to use a manual rate for that. Then this gives you the opportunity to do it. And this was also very useful as well when you have the storage in different places or different types of storage, because sometimes you have tanks and sometimes you have this sort of transport storage, which is in trucks or so, that you can't measure live, for example. So then that would require a manual input on knowing how much sort of offline inventory you have available. This was just a quick look on how to use the right data.
So today I'm going to just run through the new file upload feature flag in Excel, Ingenuity 7. So how do you enable this? So it's part of the core code. It's a feature flag enabled feature, essentially. So you just have to request your admin if you want that, and we can set that up for you. So you will get a little, if I zoom in, a little file upload button here on the left. Clicking that will expose you a UI like so. So why did we add this? Typically on all the projects we do, there's some sort of data import from Excel or CSV or any text file or something. Every client we work with, they always have different types of data that needs to come in and that we need to then be able to use in a time series manner for charts, trends, or different calculations or on different dashboards. So instead of having to write custom workflow each time, it was how can we develop a method to ingest this data in a standard way to get the ball rolling in most cases. There will always be super complex spreadsheets where the data isn't necessarily time series and needs to be written into different databases to be used in different ways. But with this method, it should give most of the use cases we've come across the ability to do that. And we've based the functionality off all of those previous work that we've done. So behind here, you've got two default scripts that you can essentially run from this UI. So you've got import from a templated Excel file and import a templated CSV file. So I've got a couple of examples here on the left. So we've got a CSV here, and a CSV like this you could get it from an Excel sheet, you could output it from a different database dump or a Python script. So you've got tag, timestamp value, starting left to right. So you've got your tag. So in this case, we're going to write to a tag, test tag _MD, a date in a standard ISO format, and then 1 to 12. So in this case, we're going to write a value at the beginning of each month for this year. So I'll select CSV, and then I can just drag that in like so. And it will then give me a preview of what I'm about to import. So I can see, okay, look, here's my historian, eigen manual input, test tag, MD, timestamp, and value. So I can see all the values, and then you can view how many rows you want or switch to a different page. So then if I'm happy with that data, I can upload it. If I'm not happy, I can cancel it, change my CSV. But so then I'll press upload. So then that's uploaded it fine. So I've got a trend here. Here you can see I'm trending this data. So now I've got a nice line from 1 to 12 from my timestamps that I've set. So if I just press edit here, so you can see that it's done that. So in the past, when we've done scripts like this, you'd have to first create the tags and then you could then write data. Whereas in this method, the APIs have been enhanced so that now all of that stuff that was previously a little bit tedious is now sort of all automated for you. So it gives you the ability that if you have a new forecast come online, for example, and you want that available today, you can just add rows to your CSV or what I'll show next in the Excel, and then you can just drag and drop it in, and then that data is available instantly in the system. You'll be able to search for that tag, use it in calculations and whatever dashboard you might think to. The next one I'll show you is a little bit more interesting. So it's the import from an Excel. So we've had a spreadsheet like this for a number of years to import different forecasts, and actually Amanda uses it to import some different data into our internal Ingenuity so that we can track trends. And so we took this spreadsheet that she had and we thought, how can we make this like standard? So what you've got here is dates on the left. So you can just use standard Excel date format. It recognizes that. And then you create columns that represent tags. So here I've got asset one underscore forecast, and under here I've got asset one underscore budget. I define the historian. So in this case, eigen manual input. In an Ingenuity system, we have an internal historian behind, as well as typically one that you've got your proper data in. So you've got two databases in there, eigen and eigen manual input. So this one, I'll use that. Define some metadata, description, and units. And in this case, I'm just going to write 1 to 12 and 12 to 1 for those dates. So first of the month for each month. So then I'll come along and I'll select Excel file this time. I can just drag that in. So you can see here that it's done the exact same thing. It's given me a preview. So I've got my tags here, asset one underscore FC, asset one underscore budget. And what's great about this is that, for example, if I came into my spreadsheet and I put some bad data into my spreadsheet, so for example, here I've put a string when really we want numeric, I can cancel that. If I drag that in, it will tell you any issues within that spreadsheet. Typically, on workflows like we've done in the past, is that it will just break and the error handling might just tell you that the spreadsheet's invalid. But now you get it down to the actual cell. So you can see C6 has the error. So you can quickly go back to your spreadsheet, debug things and get it working really quickly, minimize disruption. And then also here, it'll actually go around that error that you've added. So then if you think, well, actually that point wasn't so important anyway, I can just continue and upload the data. So I'll just correct that and I'll upload it. I'll cancel that and then I'll drag and drop that in. So here it's got, yep, process one file, found 24 points across 2 tags, and then press upload. So cool thing about this is that what the script does is it looks for a sheet name called eigen import. So you could pen this to an existing spreadsheet that you've got, or you could create a dedicated spreadsheet like I have in my case. I've got data import too. But if I had a few other sheets in my page on my workbook, for example, I could just add a new sheet called eigen underscore input. Then I could define any columns that I want to input. The values could come as manual input from myself, or they could come from formulas from other sheets. And if you actually decided you don't want to call it eigen input, if you drag and drop a spreadsheet that doesn't have eigen input in here, it'll then give you a drop down and ask what sheet you would like to import from, and then it will import that. Now, obviously, it is expecting a certain format, so it does expect the layout to look like this. So you need your date, and then you need your tag, description, units, and then the tag name and what historian. And yeah, like to what Denise said, it sort of does rely on you as the users to name the tags in a good manner. So for example, here I don't use any spaces. I'll always use underscores. and that makes it much easier to then search for in our tool. With that, here you've got a little documentation tab. So what we've tried to do here is give you sort of an overview of how it should work. So for example, you've got your CSV here. So it explains the basis of how the CSV should look. So you need your tag value timestamp. You can have these optional. The delimiter is a semicolon. The reason we use a semicolon is because often if you did, say, a calculation or something, you have a comma. It's quite a widely used character. So in our CSVs, we always use a semicolon. And then you've got your timestamp format. So in this case, the CSV does expect it to be in the ISO format, which is easy to get your head around. It's just year, month, day. Then you have to have this little T, and then you have hours, minutes, seconds. And then that will be UTC with the Z at the end. And then if you want to then offset that to a time zone of your choice, then you can pass that parameter in like so. Yeah, so then in the description here, you've got a little bit more explaining that eigen import sheet is found. That enables you to sort of power different sheets within a workbook. So for example, you could have data A, data B, and then you could do a drop down deciding what you want to import on that day. So one improvement that will be coming soon in the works of doing is adding a downloadable template to this UI. So at the moment, one of us, Eigen, would provide the template, but we're working on a way so that then you can come up here and you can just do a download. So you'll get an example of something similar to this spreadsheet that I've given you here. So then hopefully with that, you should be able to get going on tools like this with minimal interaction from us. And you probably wouldn't even need to even read the documentation. It will be sort of quite self-explanatory. You've got your date on the left and probably define the date format and your tag naming convention as well. We can add that in there. So then if you want, for example, in this case, we've got forecast or budget, or if you want sort of oil budget, gas budget, or different injection rates, for example, then you could just add new columns. So for example, if I just copy that there, I can then put that in there, and then I've added essentially a new tag to my input. So this Excel sheet is great for doing sort of forecast data. And then the CSV method is great for just importing like a bulk of data where you don't necessarily need the timestamps to line up. So for example, here, all these values here will share this single timestamp, whereas in the CSV, I could get really granular with my data points. And the benefit of this CSV is that if you have any sort of scripts or Excel macros, they could be sort of adjusted to output this .csv file, and then that can then easily be drag and drop straight into the UI. So one benefit of going down this route is that we don't have to then worry about the location of spreadsheets. We don't have to worry about maybe like a SharePoint connection. You can just manage these sheets in your own instance and then just drag and drop them into this UI when needed. Another question that came up when using this was, at the moment, we expose only 2 template imports. Now, we're in the process of adding more, but we wanted to be able to expand this. So what if somebody has a spreadsheet that is completely different format, or the file type is completely different, and they do not want to adjust it to replicate the data into a format like this or like this? So what we can do is, if I open the hub to data sources, I just find it quickly. I search for file. So here, Node-RED file upload flow. So if I edit this here, I can define an external data source that is post form multi, and it's compatible with the file upload widget. So if I just go back to this documentation at the bottom, this one's probably for the more adventurous users, but you can create your own script that would tailor to your own file type or your own data import style. And so it outlines it briefly on how one would do that. But the cool thing is that then if I install this data source, so I'll go into it in a bit more detail in a second, but if I install it, so that's a template, then if I enable that template, here it is, install. Now, if I come up here and I just reload my page, you can see now that new flow has dynamically appeared in my dropdown. So then I can use that. So what would that look like? Basically, if I go to one, here's the Node-RED instance, which is part of the Ingenuity platform, allows you to do different types of scripting. So this is the one that Ben just created just before this demo, but essentially it creates a post endpoint accepting file uploads, and then within this sort of middle area here, you'll be able to do whatever you want. So for example, I've just pasted a quick example of a different flow, not exactly the same one, but in this one here, you would upload an Excel sheet. It then uses a library called Danfo, which is very similar to Pandas and Python. So then here you can sort of split the sheet up, dissect it into different formats, and then you're able to do different actions based upon that. So for example, if you had a spreadsheet where you had wells on the left column, tags on the top column, and then you put a timestamp top left, it could then do a smart join. So it could dynamically create you a tag, say well name underscore item number, and then it would loop through that and then dynamically write points to say 40 wells. It would work on the kind of matrix level and then write points at that timestamp. But it means that then all of these unique scenarios, we don't need to add them as templated workflows unless we decide that it's actually quite a widely used one. So as we go along, we'll continue to add to that drop-down list, so the CSVs and Excel files. But it means that then when we come to do future projects with different people, if they have sort of an Excel sheet or a CSV or even a text file or just something that is a little bit out of the ordinary and it needs to do something a little bit specific to that use case, then we can just quickly tailor that. We don't have to run any deployments. We don't have to add to the code. We can just configure sort of a simple workflow that would read the file, process it, and write the data to one of our forms of databases. In this case, these examples have gone to the Influx as a time series, but it could go to our Neo4j, it could go into Elastic as events to then drive different features or different items within different dashboards. I think that's all from me. So if anyone wants to sort of start to play with this feature that's on the call, if you raise a support ticket, we can just enable this on your side menu and then provide you with an example CSV file and an example Excel sheet. Then you should just be able to drag and drop those in and start adding different forecasts or different manual data widgets, or even backfill some data and enhance the dashboards that you already have.
Thanks, Miles. There is one question. What type of data entry works best for specific cases?
So in this case, this one's great for forecast data. For example, here you've got forecast, budget, capital market update. So if you had multiple assets that you wanted to add this for, you want to add it on a yearly basis or bi-yearly basis or daily basis, then this is the way to do it. Typically that data is already in Excel somewhere. You just need to map it into this sheet and then you drag and drop it and it's in, and then you can use it. The CSV one is excellent if I'd been given like a data dump from another system and I wanted to bring that in. So it's like a point per second or point per minute across different things, or the data might not line up correctly, then I would use that. The way Denise has showed it is be great for sort of stuff like set points. For example, if you had like a high alarm on something and it was driving something very specific on the dashboard, like she showed, you could create an input on the dashboard and you could adjust that level and then it could be dynamically used in calculations. The benefit of using something like this versus just static point is that these points get saved in time. So if you click and trend on like a threshold calculation, you'll see that threshold will have dynamically changed throughout the period of time. So if you hard code a threshold of 10, it'll be 10 forever, versus if you write that threshold as a point, then today it's 10, but yesterday it was 11, for example. So it gives you a little bit more history. So I think the way Denise showed it would work perfectly for her case. But if you wanted to like upload, I don't know, 100 different points for a chemical in her case, then you probably wouldn't want to type that out manually. You'd be better off doing it in Excel or CSV. And the benefit of working in these sort of tools is that you can script the output or create formulas. So in an Excel here, I could do an equals, for example, and I could dynamically calculate points based upon another column so that it allows all of that. And then you can open a CSV file in Excel as well. So you can dynamically build your tag names or your timestamps based upon other info in an existing sheet or database dump or something like that. So they all have their use case. It's a feature that when we set off building Ingenuity 7 2 or 3 years ago, I sort of requested it. It was something that I felt we really needed. And yeah, we finally sort of put it into the action. Obviously, it's a version 1, but it's already in use with a few of our clients. And like we said, we use it internally quite a lot as well to input sort of target data or user engagement figures. And I'm sure Murray will be able to use it to input his Christmas stats at the end of year meeting as well.
Nice. Thanks, Miles and Denise, for that. As I said, if you've got any questions, then please do contact either Denise or Miles. And also, if you've got any requests for future topics on our walkthrough sessions, then please do let us know. But thank you very much for joining. I hope to see you in the next session.